What's going on, YouTube? So first and foremost, I wanted to say thank you to everyone who's been subscribing to my channel and all of the thousands of views that I've been starting to get, recently. Obviously, there's a lot of interest on this topic, what's going on in Southern California with these fires. So I'll do my best to continue documenting it or filming it and doing the best that I can because I work all throughout these areas. So again, thank you for all of the people who have been watching and all of the subscribers and all the commenters and all the nice comments and all the hateful comments, right? There's a lot of fact checkers out there. So and also if you are a part of the community that was impacted by this, all I can do is say I'm so sorry for what happened, and I wish you all of the luck in the world, sincerely, genuinely. I hope these videos can reach some people and potentially, impact them in the way that they think about the future of Southern California and what lies ahead. Most of these videos that I'm posting on the Pacific Palisades are just, I'm posting them because it's what happened, right, in my life, and this is what I do for a living. Most of the time, I really like to talk about economics and interest rates and the real estate market and stuff like that, the economy in general. That's more of the topic that I like to discuss, to be honest with you. But considering where I live in Los Angeles and how close I am to the Palisades and what I do for a living, I have an inside look as to what took place. And it is nothing short of a complete and total disaster and a complete and total failure at the highest level. And these fires in Southern California are not new to us. We've been through this many years and many times. And this is by far the worst that I've ever seen. And I've seen some pretty bad ones in Ventura, going all the way up to Santa Barbara. But this by far is the worst. So, and I want people to also take into consideration, please don't try to take everything that I have to say as being factual or, because I'm not a factual person. I'm not speaking literally. Most of the time when I comment on these topics, I'm just using broad generalities or a vague description of something. I'm not a fact checker, and that's what makes me me, right? The fact that a lot of the times I'm probably wrong. I'm not intentionally trying to mislead anyone or misinform or do anything like that. I'm just trying to be me. I'm trying to be who I am, and sometimes I'm wrong. So do yourself a favor, and take everything that I have to say into consideration and with a huge grain of salt. I might be right on some things and I might be wrong on others. I'm just giving you my thoughts and opinions about the topics and what happened throughout Southern California and these fires. But again, thank you to all of the people who have been checking out my videos. I really appreciate it. And I'm going to continue going forward and videoing or documenting, photographing the progression going forward. Obviously, it's a huge topic of interest and it's getting some viewership and people want to know what's going on. And maybe if you were impacted by this, you want to see maybe you don't even have access to this, and to the footage or, Pacific Palisades like I do. So anyways, thank you again. And if you were impacted by this, I'm really sorry. I wish there was something that I could do. Maybe in time, there might be something that I can do. I don't know. All I can say is I'm terribly sorry. And I wish that this never happened. It should have been prevented in the first place. Had the right people been in charge, these wildfires could have been prevented and mitigated, and this could have never happened. It's not like a hurricane where you have no control. These fires are something that we've been dealing with for many years, for decades, really. This is something that could have been prevented at the highest level. So, and the fact that we as Californians spend hundreds of billions of dollars in taxes, and this is the outcome, right? And I hope that this is going to be an eye-opening experience for the residents of Southern California. And potentially, this is going to be a huge opportunity for them to really think about what it is or who it is that we're putting in charge of the state. and the city, and whether or not we need to continue going in this direction, because clearly the direction is not upward. So with that being said, I wanted to talk a little bit today about the possibility of tariffs and rebuilding costs in the future going on, right? So the other day we had Donald Trump on the news talking about how he's going to impose a 25% tariff on Canada, Mexico, and 10% tariff on China. And this is going to impact the rebuilding process by a lot more substantially than you would think. Now, please, again, these are all my my opinions and thoughts, and these aren't based in fact, and none of this has actually happened yet. But the fact that we have a president talking about imposing tariffs on Canada and China and Mexico, this could potentially impact the rebuilding of Southern California in the future and going ahead, whether you know it or not. If tariffs on imported construction materials like lumber, steel, drywall, rebar, plywood, concrete, nails, plastics, insulation, PVC pipes, shingles, paints, soils, all different types of construction building materials are imported from Mexico and Canada. And if the cost of all of these goods goes up substantially, potentially 25% on Mexico and 25% on Canada, that means home building prices are going up, okay? And what does that do for home builders? Like if they're gonna get hit with higher construction material costs, the people who live in Pacific Palisades are gonna be the ones paying for it, or the insurance companies anyways, I don't know. That's to be determined, I suppose. But that's not good. That's not good. This hasn't actually taken place yet, but we're potentially headed for a pretty nasty conflict between these two countries. Not a physical conflict, but a political conflict, right? He wants to impose 25% tariffs. Whether or not you agree with it, I don't know. And it doesn't matter whether or not you agree with it. If it comes to fruition and it actually materializes, it's going to impact the residents of Southern California and their building expenses. So builders are going to jack up the prices to rebuild homes, which is inflationary, and that's not good. If inflation costs or the inflation rate continues to go up, that is going to inevitably lead all of that information and data. Inflation data is going to be incorporated in time into the CPI, the Consumer Price Index. And if inflation is already trending upward, and construction costs and labor costs and all of these costs associated with rebuilding these parts of or cities of Southern California go up, inflation's going up. And if inflation goes up, that means the interest rate, the federal funds rate, could potentially go up again. I don't know. And it kind of makes you wonder. Recently the Federal Reserve had paused with their interest rate cutting campaign, right? And it kind of makes you wonder if Jerome Powell, the chairman at the Federal Reserve, he's the one who gets to dictate whether or not interest rates go up or down. It kind of makes you wonder if he was pausing interest rate cuts in an attempt to get in front of the potential inflationary effects of tariffs. Again, I don't know if this is factual. It could have something to do with it. It might not. I don't know. Either way, I see tariffs personally, in my opinion, as inflationary, because all of the materials that I deliver, not all of them, but a big percentage of them are imported from Canada, China, and Mexico. So, and what is the outcome of that? The outcome of that is potentially reduced construction activity, right? Because the costs go up, the materials go up, labor costs go up, inflation goes up. And in response, if the Federal Reserve starts to raise interest rates again, said, oh man, we started to cut interest rates a little bit prematurely, we might need to raise interest rates again. That's going to slow down construction costs even more, because the majority of these home builders have business loans, and they it's all on credit. Like, they're buying these 2x4s, they're buying plywood, pallets of concrete. They're all using credit cards or business loans. So if the federal funds rate or interest rates go up, this is going to definitely could lead to a reduction in construction activity, which is not good. That's not good at all. So that's just some of my thoughts. And also, when you take a step back, we also have Donald Trump talking about doing or conducting mass deportations. They're already starting it, right? Maybe not in California because the state doesn't really align with his politics, right? And the state isn't going to do everything that they can to help him remove millions of illegals from the United States. And I'm not sure if you're aware of it, because I don't know where you live, but I live in Southern California, and there is a huge percentage of people who live within Los Angeles County who aren't supposed to be here. They're here illegally. Whether or not you believe it, there are, I don't know how many, so I don't want to say, because the fact checkers will correct me, but there's a lot. There's a lot of illegals in California and in Southern California, right? And most of them are really good people. They come here with a good work ethic, a solid back, and they work their ass off. So I'm not trying to take anything away from them. And being in the construction industry myself, driving all throughout Southern California, I see it firsthand, and I speak with them, I talk with them. Most of them are very good people. They work their ass off, right? They're willing to do 10, 11, 12, 13-hour shifts for $20 an hour. And all of these homes in Pacific Palisades and Altadena and Pasadena, whether you know it or not, are going to be built by illegals, period. These home builders are subsidizing construction costs with cheap illegal labor, period. End of story. That is indisputable. I know it to be factual in every aspect of life because this is what I do for a living. You can come up with whatever argument and contradiction, that's fine. It's irrefutable. Majority of these job sites and construction sites that I go to, these builders or construction companies are subsidizing labor or subsidizing construction costs with cheap illegal labor, period. So now let's talk about the potential. If Donald Trump really does, enforce immigration law and starts doing massive amounts of deportations, that's gonna increase labor costs because these guys come here and they work. So if we're removing tens of thousands, potentially even hundreds of thousands or millions of illegals from the United States and California and wherever, all throughout the United States, right? Labor costs are gonna go up. There's gonna be a lack of workers. So that's not necessarily good, because if labor costs go up, then inflation goes up. So it's kind of like a balancing act. On one hand, I see it from the perspective of an American who's saying, well, you've got millions of people here who aren't supposed to be here, and they're taking away jobs from construction workers, from paint. They're painters and they're plumbers and they're automotive technicians and they're in the warehousing industry and the processing industry and the food industry, and they're everywhere, bro. They're everywhere. They outwork everyone, and they do it for half the price. So on one hand, yeah, they do take away from a lot of workers, Americans, but on the other hand, they also make a lot of Americans a lot of money. Whether you like it or not, like they're going to pay me $100 an hour. They're going to pay Jose or whomever, it doesn't matter where you're from. You could be from Mexico, Guatemala, Nicaragua, Honduras, El Salvador. It's the same thing. Like, it doesn't really matter. They're all different countries, but they're all coming to the United States to work, and they work for $20 an hour and they work their ass off. Now that's just a broad generality. Some of them don't work their ass off. Some of them come over here with a big old bag of dope, but that doesn't speak for all of them, right? That wouldn't be the right way to go about it. So, but if we start removing millions of these workers, in the long run, that could potentially be better for America as a whole. But in the short term, this is going to impact construction. They're everywhere in the construction industry. They're roofers, they're painters, they're drywall guys, they're concrete guys, they're rebar layers, they're truck drivers, they're manufacturers. They work. And they work productive too. Some of these guys, I feel sorry for them. I go to these job sites and these are young kids. They're like 35 years old, and this guy looks like he's 50. You carry 100-pound concrete bags up and down the hill all day. in 100-degree heat, and it'll burn you out. Some of these kids are aged, but I give them credit where it's due, and they work their ass off. So I have to, you got to tip the hat to them for that, and I'd do the same thing. If I was from El Salvador or Guatemala, I'd leave too. I promise you that, So, and hopefully they need to create a better way to come in here. That's really the problem, right? There needs to be a more practical and logical way of entering the States legally, legitimately, so you can become an active member of society and contribute. Not to say that they don't, but there's a right way and a wrong way to go about it, I suppose. So, but that's not really up for me to determine. But if millions of these guys are going to get deported from the country, that's going to have an effect on labor costs all throughout the United States. So whether or not you're for it or against it doesn't really matter. So it sounds like it's going to happen. Is it going to happen in mass in California? I don't know. I don't think so, because in the past it hasn't happened. But then again, Donald Trump's kind of a wild card right now. This guy's got a pretty big agenda, and he's not a newbie anymore. He's a veteran. This isn't his first rodeo. And when you consider everything that California and these democratic states did to him, whether it was Russian collusion or fake news or Stormy this or, the attempted murders on the take, this guy's got a vendetta. I promise you, he's coming back with a vengeance, and you better take him serious. And he might be going to war with Canada, not a physical war, but potentially a trade war with Canada, Mexico, and China, which is potentially inflationary, right? And I don't think that's going to get better anytime soon. And also the European Union. So we'll see what happens. But everything that's coming out of my mouth right now is inevitably leading to the conclusion that this isn't going to be very good for, rebuilding homes in Southern California. If the price of everything goes up, that's not going to be good. If for the people of Southern California, there's other aspects of the economy that it might be the best thing that ever happened to them. Like if you have your own steel company and your own steel yard and you sell rebar, this could be the opportunity of a lifetime. You're going to be selling rebar in the United States. You're not going to be hit with a 25% tariff. This might be the best thing that ever happened to you. So again, everything is going to be situationally based. So that's just some of my thoughts today about tariffs and rebuilding costs in the future. And we'll see what happens. So again, thank you to everyone who's been checking out my videos and subscribing and commenting. I really appreciate it. It's very cool. And thank you again. I'll post another video shortly or soon. Thanks again, guys. I appreciate it.